I want to go over and be one of those R&B dudes, like making a living, sleeping in all day.
Welcome to the Exploring Washington State podcast. Here's your host, Scott Cowan.
So my guest today is Robert Stewart. Robert is a longtime Seattle area musician, and he played in a band that I saw him in called the Robert Stewart Band with a mutual friend of ours named Michael Wansley. There's your introduction.
That's true.
You get to fill in everything else.
Oh, great. Well, yeah, the Robert Stewart Band was a lack of imagination is how we came up with that name. We just couldn't.
I was going to ask. That seemed pretty creative. I mean, no.
Yeah,
kidding.
I know. Well, and we tried to kind of market it as the RSB, and it could be different things, random, syphilitic, whatever. But basically, we were just sort of playing around town and doing a lot of soul covers and trying to kind of do some originals that fit that vein, and so. And then, of course, it kind of. We were kind of winding down as some other things started winding up for Wands and other people. So,
right. Well, let's talk about your career. So how long have you been exclusively earning a living as a musician?
Well, sometime around 99, right around the turn of the century, 99, 2000, I was working at this place as a warehouse manager. I think I got the job in like 97. And so it was right at I was definitely looking for a job that I felt like I could leave because I was in the beginning stages, but still needed to work during the day. And so I think it was within a couple of years that I kind of reached a threshold where I was just sort of burnt out on working and not sleeping and making enough money at night that I could kind of take a step off the cliff,
Sure.
And so I went to him and I said, and I agonized for like a month or two, well, what should I do? I can't. What I really wanted was to just go down to a really chill schedule doing the one part of the job that I actually liked, which was just shipping the packages all over, was doing like some international shipping and stuff that was sort of interesting to me. But I didn't think I could ask for that, I thought, oh, well, how dare I ask for that? I should just quit. And, but then I finally said, look, in 2 weeks, I either want to be done here or I want to be doing this. And so they said they went for it. And that allowed me to work there for a few more years with just, just working a couple hours a day. But but interestingly enough, once I've got 4 kids, but once the 2 younger kids arrived, it was actually costing me about $5 a day to go to that job. And then I had
by the time you
go.
factor in daycare and gas and everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So basically what I was doing was I'd come out of the Seattle scene. I was in a band called Paisley Sin and another group called Spoonbender. And that was around during all the, 90, 91, 92. And
right.
And during that time, I was playing at places like the Color Box and the Central down in Seattle. But then neither of those places served liquor in those days. And so, if you wanted to drink, you had to go to these other bars, Doc Maynard's or I can't even remember. The New Orleans. We went to the New Orleans a lot to get a drink. And there was bands over there, man, like R&B bands, making money, making a living, And as I was sort of reading the tea leaves of what was going on for me and our band and stuff, I just was drawn to what these guys were doing that I was seeing during my breaks, And I said, oh man, that's what I want to do. I want to go over and be one of those R&B dudes, making a living, sleeping in all day. And, yeah, so I kind of just, sort of poked around, found my way into a few of those bands. And then, like I said, by about 99, 2000, I was able to kind of shift gears and try to make that the focus for me.
All right.
Financially.
So couple of questions for you. One's a statement and then the other's a question. So when you say turn of the century, damn, that makes us feel old. It does. I gotta say, I just oh.
Yeah, sorry to do that to you.
It's just it wasn't that long ago. But the question I have is that, and so it was a long time ago.
Well, right. And, I got to say, man, like as I don't know whether it's a product of age or whatever, but like everything seems like it was 4 or 5 years ago to me. Like even stuff that was 30 years ago. So it's like time is all messed up for me. And so turn of the century,
I totally get it.
I love history. So maybe that's where that comes from. It doesn't hit me the same way, but go ahead.
Like when Wansley and I were in college together, that was 40 years ago.
Right.
And I remember that like it was 40 hours ago.
Well, right. Like, that must have been 8 or 9 years ago, man. Oh, no, it wasn't.
No. But my question is, and this is where my memory is, well, there's lots of places where my memory is spotty, but Paisley Sin, I know the name, and I cannot for the life of me bring up anything else other than I know the name. How would you describe that band? Because I know I should know, but I just don't recall.
Well, we were around, but not really. We didn't really fit in. Certainly not in terms of what was going on in terms of grunge and that sort of like, let's all try to be punk rock all of a sudden ethic that was going on. So we were, but yeah, we were much more on the Alice in Chains and Mother Love Bone side of it than say the Mudhoney, Tad, Nirvana side of it. There was sort of that polarity going on, but also even within that, we were much more, sort of maybe classic rock. I mean, at that time, I was really much more influenced by the Sunset Strip bands myself, like LA Guns and Faster Pussycat and Guns N' Roses, of course. So maybe I was like a couple years behind the times, but yeah, I don't know.
But that's where you were getting your influence from at that phase. So that's I was much more inspired and impressed by that shit than the grunge shit at the time. I've come to appreciate some of the grunge bands that I didn't get at first over the years, but yeah. So okay, so but isn't that a bit of a leap to go from Faster Pussycat and LA Guns to R&B?
Well, not for me, because music is music, and so it's like for example, Paisley Sin in its first incarnations was during the 80s. We started in 84, and at that time I was just heavily into Prince, and so all my contributions to the band were funky. I was the bass player, and so so I've been all over the map, and then I actually remember, man, I was walking on the Ave in the U District in Seattle, man, and I went by Tower Records, and there was this like 16-foot tall poster of Guns N' Roses with their just like whiskey and their cigarettes and their boots and their leather jackets, and because I felt like we had come out of just a complete desert wasteland of music that, kind of petered out at the end of the 70s, and the 80s were just like, new wave was okay. And, there was definitely some great artists, but it just seemed like everything was just, all the cool shit that I loved about rock and roll was disappeared, so I saw that poster and I was like, now that is rock and roll. And so that kind of shifted my gear, and I just got more into writing rock songs and, again, being inspired by that, Sunset Strip scene. Yeah.
All right. So,
But the bottom line is music, I mean, it's either good or it's not very good, and those are the two genres, or there's three. There's music that makes you feel something, music that makes you, makes you feel good, music that makes you feel bad, and music that doesn't make you feel anything.
Okay. And probably, honestly, isn't the worst of those three the one that doesn't make you feel anything?
Absolutely.
Just leaves you like, oh, I just had cold oatmeal. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Or just like, yeah, okay. Yeah, exactly.
So you saw the writing on the wall then from a financial standpoint that places like the Central and, you said Color Box. That was a name I haven't heard in a long time. So what's fun for me is when I talk to you guys and you're all talking about Seattle, and we'll get to this in a little bit, but a lot of the same venues come up.
Yeah, sure.
And so it's like, oh yeah, okay, the Central or whatever. But the Color Box, for whatever reason, hasn't really popped up yet. So that was kind of a refreshing.
Well, it was not part of the front line, the vanguard. It was a product, kind of like Rock Candy and some other clubs. It was a product, I think, of the burgeoning scene and the buzz that was going on. There were clubs that were there already. The Central, the Off Ramp. It was East Lake East, and then it became the Off Ramp. and the Tractor probably, and some different places. And then there were other places that popped up as people said, hey, we need more clubs. The market will support different clubs. And so, the Color Box, I think, was like a rug store or something down in Pioneer Square. And just opened up because there's a need for more venues at that time.
Right. Right.
And I don't know that I necessarily saw the writing on any wall as much as I was starting to, it was starting to occur to me that I might not get super rich, that I might be one of the 97% of the bands in Seattle that wasn't going to make it hugely famous and stuff. And not that I gave up on that at all, but it was more just like, wow, here's a venue that I can do what I love. And like I said, I mean, music was music to me, man. I had no I wasn't going over there like snooting into my cocktail about how great it was to be across the street at the Color Box making nothing, No, not that we didn't make nothing. I mean, we made money, but you couldn't do the thing at the Color Box 4 or 5 nights a week in one town. You can only play there every 6 or 7 weeks and then get some hunger going and build up a desire for people to see you again. Well, these guys were just working all over town and doing their thing and plying their trade. And I just respected that a lot, And so I said, wow, I want to try to do that.
So drop some names. What were some of the names of those bands that you were respecting back then?
Well, let's see. Charles White over at Larry's Greenfront was badass. And Duffy Bishop, of course, although Duffy, was making serious forays into our side of the scene too. She had a band with Tommy Martin called, God, what were they called? But anyway, she was a huge influence on me because, in her band, she had like, what was those guys? Anyway, I'm spacing on their names, so I won't embarrass myself.
Well, it's not like it was just 4 years ago.
Yeah. It was just 4 years, which is why I can't remember it, But yeah, so not so many, so those were the main two, but it was much more, not so much like, wow, these guys are so fantastic and they're so popular, this one band, as much as just this world of guys that you didn't even necessarily know, like, who is this band? But they're all just awesome. And it wasn't like it was earth shaking for me. I mean, they weren't doing anything that was turning my world upside down as much as just watching professionals work, and wanting to be a professional, and wanting to be that, take what I love doing music, but then also, I don't know, just be, try to be good enough to like.
So what were some of the different, describe some of those differences? I mean, you're calling them professionals just because they were working and they were making.
Well, like for example, man, if you're going to go in with your own song and your own 150 people who are jumping up and down to hear you, you can do whatever you want. You don't have to be in tune. You don't have to sound good in the moment. I mean, as long as you've got the right attitude and you're selling it, you can get away with a lot with artistic style and pizzazz and charisma, But these guys, if they're doing Mustang Sally in some bar, I mean, it's got to be good or it's going to be pathetic. I mean, you have to be good or it's just like, this is embarrassing for us, for everyone in the bar. I mean, there's nothing worse than a mediocre R&B band, I mean, so you've got to be, just that kind of, and that's just my opinion. I mean, what do I know? But that's just the way I perceived it and continue to perceive it, as like when you strip away all the, not that those bands don't become popular, because they certainly do, but in terms of working on a Wednesday night at some place where there's 19 people buying drinks, there's nothing but the music. There's nothing but getting it right. There's nothing but hitting the one and being deep in the pocket and nailing the pocket. Because if you don't have that, then the $117 they give you and the free drinks, it kind of, the luster comes off of that really quick, So for me anyway, in that realm of making a living like that, it was the pursuit of excellence, not that you would grab it or not that you would get it, but you would be just trying to, for me anyway, I would just be trying to get better,
Better at your craft.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And then make it a little scratch too.
So when you moved over to the R&B side, what were some of the acts that you started performing with?
Well, definitely Duffy Bishop. She helped me out a lot and gave this one little blues band I was in a lot of little shows that we got to play. And it was much more venues. Like the New Orleans was really good to us. My really good friend Park Olson, who was passed away sadly, but great musician, great guitar player. He had kind of a connection to Gay, who was the owner of the New Orleans. And so she gave us a bunch of breaks and let us play down there. And then, pardon me. And then that led, to playing over at Larry's and different places. Although we had some trouble at Larry's, but and then what that leads to is, the real money is in the private events, So some people come in and they're like, oh my goodness, you're so wonderful. And we're getting married next year. And can you, and then, yes, we can come. And then it costs a lot of money for you to come to a private event and play. And so I guess that's the thing. It was more venues outside of Duffy Bishop. I can't really think of anyone. It's not the same on the original side. It's definitely like connecting with this band and getting them to let you open. And then you gain some things, but I think it's a little different, or at least it was for me in that realm in the R&B side.
Well, I'm going to ask you a couple questions and we're going to break this up today a little differently.
Sure.
So back in the day, what was your favorite venue to play at?
Oh, let's see.
As a performer, what was the room that was a great room to play at? Well,
definitely the Central was great because it was a great venue. It packed out. It was long and thin and felt like a rock concert. And but it had sort of some gravitas to it, that we were really proud as a member of Paisley Sin, especially I was really proud to be like a headliner down there, to be one of the bands playing Friday and Saturday nights as the main attraction. It was just like, wow, not only were we pulling it off, were we like getting these people to come see us and getting the club to keep booking us, but we were actually at the Central, Right. Rock Candy was great because it was just, it was built for that scene. Like I said, it came out of a opening in the market, and so it was just this big, concert venue. Off Ramp, of course, was great. So I don't know. I mean, they were all in the terms of at the height of the Seattle scene. I can't even really say. I mean, the Central did have that special place in terms of being proud to be there, but they were all good. I mean,
all right. Now the flip side to that is when you went to see music being performed back in the day, as a member of the audience, where was a great place for you to go see bands play? Well,
I think the same. I'd mentioned two places in particular. The Off Ramp was sort of the hangout because that was like 7 nights a week. Like Monday nights at the Off Ramp were incredibly cool because it was sort of like this open mic, but for better or worse, the open mic would get interrupted because there was lots of rock stars in town and they would like, oh, I want to play. And so, I had it happen more than once. I was there waiting to play and got bumped by the Dwarves, and so.
And the Dwarves?
The Dwarves. Do you remember the Dwarves?
The Dwarves. Okay. I was going to say the door. Wait, the Doors? No,
yeah,
the Dwarves.
By the Doors.
I thought Jim, I didn't think Jim was around then.
Oh, certainly not. But that doesn't stop Ray Manzarek from, pimping him out on a Monday night. But I'm sorry. I shouldn't say that. But anyway, we were bumped and that would happen. But that was also really exciting as an audience member. For example, the guys from Mother Love Bone sadly had lost their singer, Andy Wood, who was a friend of a lot of ours, had passed away. And, they auditioned their new singer on a Monday night at the Off Ramp. This little guy in this funny hat, with the deep baritone voice, sounded like Gordon Lightfoot. And to me, and I was like, damn, man, that guy sounds like Gordon Lightfoot. That's fucking awesome, And it was Eddie Vedder, of course, but that was the first time. And that sort of shit would happen at the Off Ramp. So, and that was just Monday, and then Tuesday and Wednesday.
That was just Monday.
Then Tuesday and Wednesday, you'd go to the Vogue. And, I remember seeing Alice in Chains at the Vogue, and they were hands down, full stop, the best band of all those bands. I mean, in terms of like presentation when they were still a club band, Alice in Chains was just, for me, just incredible. So you'd see them at the Vogue on a Tuesday night, and then that would just lead you in. Thursday night had there's like industry night at, the Vogue had this crazy, all the rock stars come and hang out, and they didn't have live music, but there was just a scene every night. But so the off ramp especially, and then the Central, of course, again, I'll go back to that. I remember Paisley Sin first started playing the Central when in the 80s, and it was still like people would be at tables and then they'd get up and dance and then they'd go sit back down, and it was sort of, as the 80s, we got to the mid 80s, then it started to shift, and you'd go in there and there'd be people there like it was fucking Kiss, like, and I think that was the first time I saw that. I think it was Mother Lowbone I saw there. And I was friends with those guys. And so I went down and to check it out. And I was just like, damn, they're like rock stars, this is like a rock concert, So those two places were great places to see a show.
That's awesome story. Why? I'm going to put you on the spot because you said full stop, Alice in Chains was the best band. Now, this is your opinion. Why elaborate on that? What was it about Alice in Chains that you saw that elevated them to that category for you?
Hard to say, because I heard about them and, I was, before I saw them, but it just sort of, gradually it grew to the point, there was something about it. I got to say it's with their original bass player, Mike Starr, so those three guys, when they were bunched together on a small stage, none of them moved very much, but they just all had this coolness about them. And then the vocals were so strong and together. And like I said, it's just my opinion, but I have really strong feelings about it. And then the also thing that I will always bring up and that I always remember is that it was Alice in Chains that broke first. They were the first band, like before Soundgarden was signed, and they were doing okay, but they hadn't had a hit record or anything. And Nirvana was still a few days off in the future when Alice in Chains got their song Man in the Box on MTV. They had a video.
Oh, that's right.
And it was like, oh my God.
Exactly.
Where you're from this little cow town and the guy is like the NFL quarterback or something, it's like, oh my God, Alice in Chains is on MTV. And then they were opening for Van Halen. And it was just like, so I really feel that they're kind of unsung in that regard, because I really feel like their music was, sure, it was very metal and all that stuff, but it was also different, and I feel like they really deserve credit, in my view, of course, for just sort of opening the door a crack and allowing Nirvana especially to blow it wide open. Because obviously Nirvana deserves all the accolades because they like destroyed the world, and all the Lita Fords in it, but I really feel Alice in Chains deserves some credit for being kind of the vanguard. And then I will say, man, when you're 4 feet away from a band in a tiny club, there was nothing like Alice in Chains, man. They were just so cool.
I've shared this story before, and with Wansley, Alice in Chains played a birthday party for him at Bleacher's Tavern.
Oh, wow. In Montlake.
Do you remember Bleacher? Yeah.
Yeah. What a dump.
And yeah. And Mike and I, when we started talking to musicians on the podcast, Mike did 4 episodes in a row and we talked about each decade that I've known him. Right.
Right.
And somehow the story in my head was when he turned 30 and it wasn't his 30th. It was like 27, 28, somewhere in there, late 20s. And anyway, I remember that was the one and only time I ever saw Alice in Chains. Oh, wow. And yeah, it was the one and only time, because I was working nights at that time, and it's the only time I got to see him. And while I wasn't 4 feet away from them, because I was probably drinking a few tables away type thing.
Well, right. And Bleachers wasn't set up in the same way to corral the stage. It was, anyway.
But they were powerful.
Yeah.
They were very powerful. And it was a very interesting show. And then, so that was,
it has to be said that Life Ring Wands' band was very cool too, man. I didn't know Wands at that time, but I'd seen I knew one of the guys in that band, and I saw them once or twice, and they were really cool too. Also, not quite, not like Paisley Sin, but similar to Paisley Sin, and doing something a little bit off the accepted, like, let's be,
Right. Well, let's ask this question then. And once again, the opinions that are stated here on the show are those of the guest and not necessarily the host of the podcast. I'm just kidding. What? So we obviously, when we think of the Seattle scene, we think of Alice in Chains, Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Screaming Trees were there.
I'd put Soundgarden is the last member of the big four. Is
okay.
And then
so who didn't make it that would have been, like, in your opinion? Because there was so much talent in Seattle at that time. And not that there's not talent in Seattle today, but I mean, there was just this concentration, if you will, it seemed like, of Doc Martin wearing flannel shirts.
And
leather jackets.
Yeah. Some very, very new, very, very brand new Doc Martens,
So what other bands were around then that you kind of thought, well, these guys are really kind of cool?
Well, let's see. I mean, I think that you're absolutely right. I mean, there was tons of bands, and they're just, that's the thing with music. And we're especially seeing it now because of the internet. And there's, like, you can get the coolest band in Nairobi and you can just rock out to them. And so you realize, and it's humbling and beautiful, that there is so much music that is killer. And there are way more qualified, talented, extraordinary musicians than there are actual jobs in the music industry for them.
Right.
Like on my block, there's probably dentists and optometrists and mailmen who are better at music than I am. They are just, it's like the sixth most important thing in their life,
Okay.
So instead of the first, like,
wait a second. You're saying you'd rather, like, there's people out there that would rather put their hands in people's mouths than play a guitar? I mean, that just seems weird to me.
Well, possibly, but, or maybe they just didn't want to take the vow of poverty that, that we talked about on the phone the other day. But no, I just mean that there's so much talent. There's so much incredible musical talent in the world. And I say the thing about the dentists and the mailmen more as a joke, but it's true. Your dentist is probably a really good guitar player, or probably played in a band,
right.
And if he'd stuck with it, who knows? But so, yeah, let me see. I love the War Babies. They did get signed, and then, because they were very, I don't know if they'd appreciate me saying this, but they were a little Sunset Strippy, and I love that shit, and
sure.
I don't know if I'm, if language.
No, you're fine.
Okay.
You're good.
Sorry, kids. So I really love them. We played with a band called Son of Man that was really cool.
Okay.
And, played with Sweetwater. They've kind of carved out a little cool little niche because they still play around and still play like, they still play pretty big venues and do pretty well. But there was, My Sister's Machine and then
wow.
Gas Huffer, Alcohol Funny Car. I mean, there's Zip Gun. Damn, Zip Gun was one of my favorites. A friend of mine, Robbie Clark, who I grew up with, he was a little younger than me, but, Zip Gun was phenomenal. And, so you could just stick a thing. I think it definitely is a meritocracy. I think those bands that made it really big deserved it. And, and since it's all about my opinions today, I'll just say that I think all four of those bands were, in my limited experience of them, were really nice guys, meaning I never heard any of them talk shit about another band or, I mean, I should say Kurt Cobain had some salty things to say, but, he was on a lot of drugs and who knows, and I didn't really know him personally, and maybe that was just part of his shtick. But like the guys from Pearl Jam, Mother Love Bone, Alice in Chains, and Soundgarden, and, Dave Grohl and the bass player for Nirvana, neither of which I didn't know those guys, but never heard him say a salty word about another band. Never heard him say anything like, oh, those guys suck, or, take a shot at them. And then also really hard workers, I mean, while a lot of us were like busy, like, figuring out what drink we should drink or how to act like rock stars. They were really working their asses off, I think. So that's my opinion. Right. But outside of that, I mean, I think that any band that kind of made it almost to that level but didn't quite, it easily could have been. They easily could have made it big. So.
Well, it's funny. You named some names that I haven't thought of in years, but I still remember when you say it, like, War Babies, and, that was, oh yeah. Okay. So.
Yeah. And the Gits, a lot of people will bring up the Gits, but the Gits were really good. They were really phenomenal. And I don't know if they had what it takes to make it or whatever, whatever it was, but, right. But, of course that was derailed by some serious tragedy, but they easily could have been something, so there's another great band. I'll tell you, and I don't know if they came, I think they came a little late, but I've come to, my favorite Seattle band of all time is the Super Suckers,
Okay.
And I just love them. I mean, they're still out there, like playing, like putting out new records and touring, and, like nothing is, so those are the bands I love the most, the ones that are just still out there rocking it, on whatever level, I mean, I could say the same of Pearl Jam. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of them or their music, but my brother did take me to one of their concerts once they were huge, and they were undeniably awesome, just as like an objective observer saying, wow, let's see how these guys are at what they do. Incredible, just incredible professionals,
Well, and I think you've nailed two things. Number one is there's not enough seats at the table for everyone to be successful in the record industry. And number two, I think you create your own luck. If those guys were out there practicing their craft and working it every day versus, like you said, figuring out what cocktail have or how to look like a rock star, they were actually out there working.
Yeah, not to disparage anybody. I mean, I'm more speaking about myself. I think that I could have worked harder and focused less on bullshit. But anyway, please go ahead.
But it's that intersection where talent and luck intersect.
Absolutely, and work and hard freaking work.
Yeah, and putting yourself out there and getting lucky. I mean, let's call it that. I mean, I'm not disparaging anybody in any industry, whether it be food, music, sports. There's a lot of talented people out there that just for whatever reason they didn't win the lottery.
Right.
Because you're 6'8" and you can dunk a basketball while sitting on the ground. Doesn't mean you're going to play in the NBA and make millions of dollars.
Right.
So
all that. Right. Because you've got to wait till like the best defensive player from the state next to you is guarding you, and then we'll see whether you can still dunk the ball and
right, and
whether somebody sees it when you do it. Whether someone is there to see it. When lightning finally strikes.
Exactly. If you're doing this in a dingy gym in the middle of nowhere with ESPN nowhere around, yeah, okay, sure,
right.
But if you're doing it. Anyway, we can go down that rabbit hole, but let's not.
Yeah,
so let's just okay. So we've kind of reminisced. Now let's bring it into present day.
Sure.
We'd be the elephant in the room is COVID.
Yeah,
totally screwed up everybody's life for in the arts, in the restaurant business.
Yeah.
So I think we're kind of coming out of that. I think we're adapting to it. It's whatever our new quote unquote normal is going to be.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've been out, seeing some shows and have been playing again since June. I had a really busy summer, and yeah.
So how did this summer go? Let's talk about this summer for you. How was summer 21 versus summer 19?
Summer 21 was great. I would say, like I said, we were adapting. So it was definitely some different things going on, but, busy. I was playing, every weekend and, sometimes during the week and, traveling a lot. I was all over Washington State and, Spokane and, out to the coast. And I'm in a group called the Fiasco. And so I was with them a lot, and we did a swing through Idaho, which was quite an adventure with COVID and everything. I mean, it's just, we spoke on the phone the other day and I told you it was another world over there. I mean, I was like, I'd be in the Safeway and I'm the only person wearing a mask. And, one Saturday morning I came around a corner, I'm there to get some bacon or I don't know, a banana or something. And I've got my mask on and I come around the corner and this nice lady, she comes around the other corner. It was like I had a bloody knife in my hand. I mean, she was just like, I mean, I scared her, I guess. I don't know, with my mask and my desire to live, through this global pandemic. I don't know what. But, the shows were the shows, and it was just great. We had great shows over there. So summer 21 was just fine.
So earlier in the episode, you mentioned the Robert Stewart Band. You go, yeah, we put a lot of effort into that name, being facetious. But I have to say the Fiasco is a great name.
Yeah, well, that kind of happened. Thank you. That happened kind of organically. I have to say that it's not, we formed in 2002, and that was before it occurred to me that you could like Google names to see whether there's, 100 other bands like that, which there are, but we've definitely carved out a niche for ourselves in Washington and Oregon and in our area so that we seem to come up. But, and I've seen, since we've been doing it, I've seen bands, a little punk band in England called the Fiasco, or a Boston group of college students, or, some Fiascos pop up. But, thank you for at least liking it. So it kind of the name came naturally because, so 2002, I'm playing every Tuesday night at this place called the Paragon on Queen Anne, which doesn't exist anymore. It was owned by this great guy named Todd Ivester, who let me play up there. I think actually my girlfriend, who's now my wife, probably got me the gig or something. But I was playing up there and I was just totally done with bands and, kind of going through one of my, intermittent life crises. So I was like, fuck it, I'm just going to play by myself. And so I was up there playing my songs, throwing in some old soul covers, from the kind of R&B bands I was playing in. And so the first thing was I was playing New Year's Eve with this guy this bartender at the club I played that New Year's Eve. I never really got along with him that well. And then we were smoking dope on a break. And then I talked to him for the first time, and he turned out he was a musician. So that was why he wasn't like jumping up and down to get me my drinks really fast, which was why I didn't like him. He was just treating me like all the other customers. Oh my God, how dare he, But anyway, then we finally ended up talking and we were getting along. And he says, I play a djembe drum. And I was drunk. I was like, oh, dude, I play on Tuesdays. You should come by and sit in, and I wasn't serious. I was drunk, and so then he shows up, and I'm like, oh, Jesus,
what am I going to do with this?
Okay, come on, let's play. And then he was awesome, and it was just like incredible. I was like, dude, you got to come back. I'll pay you. Just come back next week. And so never rehearsed with the guy. He was just on it. The next week he came back. He remembered everything from the week before. And so then we were billing it as me and him, Robert Stewart and Cameron Williams. And then this guy, the Paragon had a really cool scene. Brandy Carlisle, who I'm sure you've heard of, was playing every Sunday when I was playing there on Tuesdays. And she had a guitar player with her at the time named Keith Wright. And he would come in on Tuesdays and drink and listen to us. And then he started sitting in, and he was awesome too. And I was like, wow, well, you should start coming every week. We'll pay you too. And so then we needed a name for this trio that had kind of formed organically. And it seemed like a big mess. So we called it the Fiasco. First, it was the Robert Stewart Fiasco. And then it just, it became a fiasco out of respect and deference to their contributions, shall I say.
Okay. I love listening to these stories. I love hearing, how, how you're breaking eggs to make the omelet type thing. I just think it's, cause when you sit in the stands, or at the table at the restaurant or whatever, you're there to enjoy the music. Right. But there's so much more to what the music is than just that performance.
Right.
I mean, how on earth did you get to that stage? You know, what path, where did you make the wrong turn to end up there? Or,
Right.
Or the right turn to end up there?
Right.
And it's interesting because we this last weekend, this is the first time ever since we've lived in Wenatchee. We had conflicting musical events to attend at the same time. Nice. It was, we had an embarrassment of riches over here for us. And, so we got to, luckily one performer was playing early and the other performer was playing a little later. So we got to see most of the early show and most of the later show. It was kind of fun.
Right on. You mentioned a friend was playing a winery out there. Was that one of them? Or
yeah.
Yeah,
one of them, a friend of ours. And then, do you know Steve Alement?
I don't know if I do. It sounds familiar.
Played in
AILMENT.
Yeah.
I don't know him, but I've heard that name.
So he played in a band with Wansley called the Fighting Cocks.
Oh, of course.
With Steve Pearson.
Yeah.
And then
Rain
he played
Rain Shits guys.
Yeah, and he played in the Hoods, but he also played in a band out of San Francisco called the Yanks.
Okay, I think I've heard of that too.
Yeah, and so Steve, and then Annie O'Neill.
I know that name as
Bart
well.
Hyde,
yeah,
and Bart Hyde. They played at this cidery over here Friday evening, and then another friend of ours, Jessica Lynn Whitty, was playing at this winery before that. Speaking of, so you were saying earlier how like the dentist down the street's a better musician than you.
Yeah.
I just, here's an example of that. So we're at this little winery here in East Wenatchee, and Jessica's playing, and she's wonderful. She's a great performer, and we enjoy seeing her. And I don't know, because of the way the venue was set up, because it was raining and all that, we weren't really in a great place to see what was going on. All I know then all of a sudden is this other woman is up on standing next to Jessica singing. She was from the crowd.
Right.
And this woman had a phenomenal voice. No disrespect to Jessica, but I think everyone was like, "Oh my God, where did this person come from?"
Right.
Can I sing a song?
Right.
Sure, come on up. Thinking like your drummer guy going, "Oh, okay," but then you're like, "Wow, he's amazing."
Right.
So it's just interesting to hear your stories, hear the artist's stories about how does the band come together, and the journey that you're on. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. And I think
so. The fiasco.
Go ahead.
Let me ask you this about the fiasco, because I didn't do my research. So, if I'm asking a stupid question, well, we can laugh.
Yeah, sure.
Are the original guys still in the band, or has it evolved?
Oh yeah. I mean, there is no other guys. There would not ever be any other guys. In fact, the Robert Stewart band was, the guitar player had gotten a deal with one of his other groups. He's in a group called Point One. They got a deal, and he was on the road and left the group for a while. And so the drummer and I coddled together what became the Robert Stewart band. It was Cameron from the Fiasco, but there was no way we could. Some people go, "Oh, is this the Fiasco?" And we're like, "No, this is not." There's just no. You can't. So because we've never rehearsed the Fiasco, we're still playing. We played all summer this year, and we've got a new record coming out, but we've never rehearsed, And
really?
So, I mean, we would play every Tuesday night live, and that's how we would I'd come in and with a song I wrote, and within 4 or 5 Tuesdays we have it. It would evolve into the song that it was going to be, but. No, let's try it again or anything. We would just play it once. And, amazing COVID, of course, shut us down. And so we did not play together or even really see each other from, we played February 29th, 2020 at Slim's. And then COVID hit. And then we didn't get together on June 1st, 2021. We booked some studio time, went into London Bridge and cut a record, and we hadn't seen each other in all that time, really. I guess we did. Okay. We did get together and kind of did a walkthrough, but it's not really we did a walkthrough the weekend before the session at London Bridge, and so we've gone 8-9 months without seeing each other, and we just pick up and play and no problem. Mostly a credit to them, I have the easy job because I get to just do whatever I want, so my job is to know what I want to do and exactly how I want to do it and know where we're going to go and think of the next song that we're going to play, because we don't do any set lists or anything. So that's my job, but they just listen to me and play live in real time, in key, for the most part, pretty good. Yeah.
How on earth do you pull that off?
Like I said, I mean, I think that it's a really rare thing. I mean, I think they both have really good, they have great ears, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, they just, the guitar player, Keith Wright, especially has great knowledge of the fretboard and theory and modes, you know, which none of that do I understand. I don't know what a mode is, but I know he knows what it is. And it means that he knows what the right notes are up and down the keyboard. So I think that's to his credit. And then the drummer, Cameron Williams, just has a really intuitive sense and a great memory of that's what I did last week. That'll work. Wow. That'll work this week, even though I never talked to him about it, never said, oh, I'd like it to be like this. So yeah, it's mostly a credit to them. I mean, they can plug in, those two guys can plug in any singer-songwriter guy like me and do an semblance of their thing that they do with me. You know, but it's very unique to them as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I have tried to, you know, one really good friend of mine who I work with a lot and is one of my partners now in a couple projects. You know, I had him come and sit in with me and Cameron one night, and afterwards he just said, "Man, I just felt dragged around." You know, just dragged around. And it wasn't fun. It wasn't fun for him, you know, so
it wasn't fun for him, but the three of you together is, it's like somebody who cooks without a recipe.
Right. Yeah. It just works, you know, and I can lay new stuff on him. I mean, I have to be thinking in terms of, I mean, I can't go, okay, I'm going to do this song. And then in the middle, it goes to this 5/7, you know, I can't do anything too weird because it has to happen in live, you know. But if there are some weird things, I can pull Keith aside and say, hey, I'm going to do this thing and meet me here. And then Cameron will get it, you know. We don't need to talk to him about it, you know, or I can just he'll just get it. Or I can just give him a little, you know, we've been doing it for almost 20 years now. So it's really synced up, like a little hand gesture, a little thing like that, you know, here I'm looking at I don't know what I'm doing with the camera, but
it's okay. So remember, this is just an audio format. You know, that's half the fun of it for us. Those is we're like you're making gestures, and I'm looking at other things, and we're like,
I was making useless, indiscernible gestures for the audience.
That's okay. So there you go. It helps convey it, but you know what? It adds to the impact of the story. Right. It really does, because if you were just sitting here, just, you know, well, and then we did A, B, and C, it'd be kind of boring. But you're injecting a lot of, you know, energy.
Right.
Well, let me ask you then, it's now fall at the time we're recording this, you know, fall 2021.
Yeah.
What's the future looking like?
Well, I've shifted gears. The Fiasco is, we're probably going to play. We're waiting for our record. All the basics are done. And I think Keith has some guitar tracks he still has to do. And then, you know, people's different schedules intervene. And so, Fiasco's on sort of a little, not necessarily a intentional hiatus, but we're taking a couple months, and we'll probably get back. You know, we travel a lot, so we don't do a lot in the wintertime in that regard. Mm-hmm. We'll probably play once or twice over this stretch in Seattle, I would think. And then if there's a town that we can get to without having to drive through too much snow, we may do that. For me, I just finished a new solo record, so I'm just sort of getting all the I's dotted and the T's crossed and all that stuff, and going to try to do a little radio campaign, get some CDs sent out, and plan a CD release show somewhere in Seattle. I haven't really picked the venue. And so I'm going to focus on that. And then I've got I do a residency up in Mukilteo the first Saturday of every month. And so that's sort of just my home base, kind of keep me on, you know. So
where in Mukilteo?
It's this little cocktail bar called Bits. It's on I don't know, Lakeview Point Boulevard Northeast or something like that. But I don't know. But it's called Bits. It's a really good old friend of mine, not an old person, but someone I've known a long time, named Tracy McFarland, runs it, and so she's kind enough to let me play there. And Keith usually plays with me up there on But I don't know whether he's, like I said, schedules intervene. So I think I may be doing this next one, November 6th, without him, but I don't know. So I do that every, we can then play little things that come up. I played recently at Drunkie's Two Shoes Barbecue, which is a place I hadn't heard of, but was awesome, out in like the South End, Burien. Open.
Isn't that White Center?
Yeah, White Center. And
I just, once again, somebody very creative came up with the name.
Yeah, or somebody from another part of the country. It definitely reminds me of sort of Austin. It's Austin, Texas, maybe, or not so much New Orleans, but it's killer barbecue. They've got an indoor area, but the outside is where the shows are. So they've got a big covered area that they have misters in the summertime. It was still warm when I played there, but I guess they have heaters now. And so they're having shows all through the winter. And so, that was a really great venue to play. I opened for this friend of mine, Grace Love, who's a phenomenal singer. And so I don't know where I'm going to do I'm going to kind of scout some venues and figure out where I will be allowed to and where I want to do my CD release. And that's the main thing I got going in the next weeks.
Approximately when do you think that'll come out?
Well, it's out now. My record is out. It's called Spring 21, Me, My Dog, and a Beer. And you can get it on it's out on Spotify, YouTube, iTunes, Apple, and then it's making its way to the more outlying. I just got a notice that it's available on Deezer. I don't know what Deezer is, but there's this long list of places that my distributor sends it out to, and I don't know very much about most of them. But the main ones that people are familiar with, Spotify, Apple, iTunes, it's already out. And then, of course, Bandcamp is the one that I kind of am super high on, because you can go there, you can listen, you can download, you can pay if you want to, but you don't have to. You don't have to join like with Spotify or Apple or anything. And so it's out there. And then CDs, I'm getting ready to order the CDs, and I'm pretty fast turnaround. So once I have the CDs in hand, then I'll be ready to do this.
The launch.
Yeah, the launch show, the big CD release.
Okay.
Soiree.
So what do you do when you're not doing music?
Well, I've got some young kids. I've got 4 kids. Like I said, I've got 2 older kids who are out of the house. And then my wife and I have daughters 13 and almost 10. My daughter Tallulah is going to be 10 on November 5th. And so, during the day, I'm just sort of on duty, soccer dad, make a sandwich, load a dishwasher.
Right. Are you a coffee? Are you a fan of coffee?
I am. I love coffee, but mostly at this point, is just a drug that is awesome. I love caffeine. So I can't, I used to be drinking coffee all day, but it's just sort of, I don't do that anymore. But, I really like a dose of that particular substance, every day.
Any good coffee dealers in your area that you recommend?
Let's see. No, I mostly get it at home, but there are some coffee shops left, but nothing that I can speak intelligently about.
Okay.
All
right.
I've got a friend of mine. My friend Rick works for Cafe Vita. I think he still works for them. So he kind of, I could go and check his feed because he's always delivering to some cool coffee shop that's not Starbucks and
gotcha.
Could be recommended. So I'd have to do.
Well, Cafe Vita is quite good. Yeah,
and I think they're more just. I guess they do have coffee shops of their own, but they also supply to different places. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I'm spacing on the names. Okay. I would plug a shop or two, but I can't.
That's okay.
But I will say that Starbucks, betrayed us, and the owner of Starbucks had a huge tantrum, and that's why the Seattle Supersonics are in fucking Oklahoma City. So if you want to fucking boycott Starbucks, please do. More in my opinion. Sorry.
No, it's all good. It was devastating to see that happen.
Yeah, and it was a complete case of billionaire malfeasance. A tantrum. He had a tantrum. He had a tantrum of control. And he did like any of us, when we were in our, like, I must control things and I will get revenge upon you. We all do that. But most of us don't have, so much collateral damage that comes with the tantrum. We maybe get shunned by our friends. We have to apologize. Sorry, I was so drunk. That was, this guy, like, and
he ripped the soul out of Seattle.
Right.
They weren't the first sports franchise here because the Pilots, but
right. Thank you. I went to a Pilots game. I went to a Pilots game.
Oh my gosh.
6 Stadium.
Okay, but
anyway, sorry.
But Pilots were only here for 1 year.
Yeah, you're right.
The Sonics were
41 years.
Yeah, they were more, to me, more woven into the fabric of Seattle than the Seahawks or the Mariners. Now, the Seahawks are obviously more popular.
Now they are.
The Mariners are, and the Mariners are, well, they're the redheaded stepchildren of professional sports.
Well, but they got to work on that. They got to be better.
But the Sonics were, that really hurt when he did that. I don't know where I was looking online either this morning or last night, and I was looking at some stuff about the Seattle Kraken.
Yeah.
And they had a cardboard cutout of the Sonics guy. I can't remember his name. You know who I'm talking about? The and it was almost like a life-size cutout in front of Climate Pledge Arena that says, with a little thing that says, "Bring them back."
Yeah.
And he's wearing Sonic gear. I thought that was, I hope that arena is a viable venue for them.
Yeah.
For a team to come back at some point, maybe. I stopped watching the NBA when the Sonics left.
Yeah.
I stopped.
Yeah.
Couldn't watch it.
I'm hoping that the new arena is a harbinger, and when the Sonics do come back, and I feel like they will, I'll be happy to like bury any blood feud that came out of that, once we're made whole. But we will also have to say that we in Seattle will be able to be proud of ourselves for being the vanguard of this movement, because now more and more billionaire team owners are just building their own damn stadiums. I mean, the NBA the model for the NBA is insane. I mean, the city of Indianapolis, the taxpayers of that town pay billions to the Pacers in cash, subsidies, not tax breaks, cash, like $11 billion a year. I may have the numbers wrong, but all these little markets that shouldn't have teams, and the same thing the NBA was trying to do to us. Oh, we're leaving if you don't pay. And we're like, we're not paying. We had not even finished. Anyway, I don't want to get into politics, but
no, but the professional sports is a very polarizing business model.
Right. Well, and anyway, the point I want to make is that more and more cities are saying, no, you have to pay for it yourself. And more owners are doing that. And Seattle, once we get our team back, we will be able to say, well, it cost us these years of basketball enjoyment, but we did it for the right reason, and we did it, and we changed the landscape, for the better, I think.
Yeah.
So,
okay. There we go.
Blah.
Music and sports.
Blah, blah, blah.
Music and sports in this episode. No, I love it. No, it's all good. What question didn't I ask you that I should have?
Gosh, I don't know.
I'll put you on the spot. You're current in today's world. Where's a great venue to play at for you? I mean, you mentioned Drunky Two Shoes, which, I mean, just for the name alone sounds like a great venue to play.
I would say in recent years, my favorite place to play has been the Tractor.
Okay.
Just a great destination venue, totally professional bartenders, totally professional sound people, totally professional proprietors and bookers, and have just had great, wonderful nights there. The Fiasco was fortunate enough to play at the Paramount, which is certainly not something like, well, I was just at the Paramount the other night. I mean, it was a big deal for us. And we played there under really bizarre circumstances, but that was incredible. The crew there, it was just unbelievable. I mean, the best part of playing at the Paramount was the sound check, to just have this army of absolute professionals, not only asking you what you need, but immediately knowing what you're talking about and giving you everything that you need, and amazing. So, and the Paramount's not alone. The Moore is a great theater, but I haven't played there, but I assume that it's amazing. And, but I would say in terms of places that are accessible that I have played and hope to play again, I think the Tractor is my favorite in Seattle right now.
Okay. Well, I'm going to put you on the last question. I'm going to put you on the spot. You just said accessible, so you ruined my setup. But where do you want to play that you've never played? What would be a venue like for you? You're like, wow, this is amazing.
Well, I guess it doesn't have to do with where and as much as circumstance. Like right now, I'm really invested. I've been making solo records. A product of COVID, actually, because I was put out of work by COVID, like everyone else in the restaurant and bar business. Singers and bartenders and caterers and all of us were out of work. But then also I had songs stored up, and my method had been to like record on a tape recorder and like little demos. Oh, that's kind of cool. And work it up in my mind, and then go into a studio on a given day and record. And so I was ready to do that again, and called up my friend Rick Vaughn, who I've worked with and continue to work with. And I said, dude, where can I record? And he goes, look, man, nowhere. You can't record anywhere. And by the way, you shouldn't even be hiring guys like me. Just buy these 3 items and just leave us alone, man. You should record by yourself. So
leave us alone.
Yeah. So he told me what to get. I got a Focusrite transmission box or something that I plug into my computer. I got a couple of good mics, so for a few $100, man, I set up this, I got Pro Tools and, so I've been, I've made like 4 records since COVID, of different projects, but 2 solo records. I did one in the summer of 2020, what called Summer 20. And that one's been out since probably like New Year's, Christmas time.
Okay.
And then I've got the Summer 21. So I'm really amped about just playing solo and, continuing to work with all the bands that I'm fortunate enough to be in, but really jazzed about just the freedom of playing by myself and doing my own thing. So I guess the answer to your question would be just I'm working towards trying to get to a point where I'm playing larger and larger places, not too large, but places where people are really there, dedicated to hearing me. And the cliche, I'd love to just be in rooms where you can hear a pin drop, and people want to know all about what my silly poem that I put to music is all about. So
what was the muse for this song?
Well, right, or just listening and digging what I'm doing, in a real. Okay. So that's my thing. I mean, I went and saw Andre Segovia. You remember that guy, classical guitar dude?
Yeah.
So I went and saw him in the old Opera House like 30 years ago. So it's probably 4 years ago. No, 30 years ago or something, a long time ago. But anyway,
yesterday,
right, he got up there and played no amp, no mic, no nothing, man. I mean, 2,000 people. I don't know how many people were there, 5,000, whatever, man. We were all there. And he's just playing a classical guitar, just nothing, no mic, no amp, Wow. I mean, I remember I had like a cough or a sneeze or something. I had to get up and, because I was afraid I was going to just get stoned to death if I sneezed. I mean, so I don't need that. I don't need that kind of observance from the audience, but I'd love to just be, I'd love to just take this solo thing of mine to some heights not yet reached, I guess I'd say.
All right. Well, listen, I appreciate you jumping on and having this conversation with me, and I've enjoyed it. You've dropped some names I haven't heard in a while, which is, I love doing this because I just like, oh yeah, so-and-so, or oh yeah, there. So that's been awesome. So hopefully, you've had a good time.
I have.
And I just appreciate you being here.
I have. I've had a lovely time, man. So I really appreciate it. Hey, could I just plug my website or something? Make this.
Before you plug it, let me just say we will put it in the show notes below so people can click on it.
Okay, well, good. That's all I want. That just makes it
plug away. Tell them where to find you.
Makes it tax deductible for me, so I can. So you can go to robertstewartmusic.com. Also, robertjamesstewart.com. I should say, I finally added the James to my name just because there's a lot of Robert Stewarts. There's,
Sure.
So Robert James Stewart, apparently, like, you can just pull me right up if I use my whole name. So robertjamesstewart.com or robertstewartmusic.com. And I guess that's a good jump off point. People can like go to anywhere else they want to find me from there. So
perfect. All right. Well, hey, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Join us next time for another episode of the Exploring Washington State podcast.